The morning air over Landivisiau in the western region of Finistère carries the sound of turbines winding up to full power. On this French naval airbase, one of the most demanding training rituals in modern military aviation is unfolding. This is where the Rafale fighter jet, centerpiece of France's aerial power, prepares for one of its most delicate maneuvers, the simulated deck landing exercise. The story begins with the pilots themselves, men and women who have committed years of their lives to mastering a skill that only a handful of aviators in the world can claim. The ability to take off from and land on the short, moving runway of an aircraft carrier. Before them lies a daunting prospect, translating every hour of simulator practice, every lesson learned in theory, into the raw act of guiding a 20-ton jet to a stop on a narrow strip of steel at sea in all weather. On this day, however, the stage is the concrete runway at Landivisiau, a vital substitute for the moving deck of the Charles-de-Gaulle. We watch as the pilots climb into their cockpits, strapping on their helmets, securing their harnesses, and running through a ritual of checks that has become second nature. To the untrained eye, it may appear routine, almost mechanical, but to those who live it, each movement carries immense significance. One overlooked switch, one missed reading on an instrument can mean the difference between life and death when they are out at sea. On the ground, engineers and crew members swarm around the aircraft. Their hands move quickly across the fuselage, checking panels, inspecting components, and listening closely to the roar of engines coming to life. These ground crews are the unsung guardians of the pilots. The trust between pilot and engineer is sacred because no machine, no matter how advanced, can function without those who maintain its heart and bones. The Rafale itself, gleaming in the Breton sunlight, is a machine designed for versatility. Developed by Dassault Aviation, it is capable of carrying out air superiority missions, precision strikes, reconnaissance flights, and even nuclear deterrence if the order were ever given. It is the beating heart of French naval aviation, but no matter its technological marvels, the jet is only as effective as the pilot who can land it safely on a carrier deck. This training is the bridge between theory and survival. One after another, Rafales taxi down the runway, their engines shrieking as they gather speed. The base reverberates with controlled thunder, the sound of France's air power leaping into the sky. Each takeoff is both familiar and dramatic. On the Charles-de-Gaulle, catapult systems assist the jets in their ascent. Here it is the raw thrust of the twin engines and the razor-sharp reflexes of the pilots. Watching them rise into the air reminds us of the sheer power contained within a few seconds of acceleration. Now comes the heart of the exercise, simulated deck landings. At first glance, it may seem like a normal pass over the runway, but to the pilot, it is a life or death rehearsal. Carrier landings are often described as controlled crashes. The pilot must approach at just the right angle, control descent speed to the finest margin, and be prepared to abort instantly if conditions deviate from safety. On the open sea, the challenges multiply. The deck is short, it pitches and rolls with the waves, and arresting cables must snatch the jet to a halt within seconds. The margin for error is measured in inches, not meters. Here at Landivisiau, officers observe each pass with eagle eyes. Their role is to evaluate, critique, and instruct, ensuring that pilots perfect the muscle memory required to succeed under combat conditions. Each maneuver is scored, dissected, and corrected. Even the smallest deviation in alignment is noted because at sea there are no second chances. The Rafale streaks low across the runway, simulating the final seconds before touchdown. The roar of engines merges with the sharp commands of ground officers tracking every movement. Observers stand in groups, noting details, watching how the landing gear hovers just above the tarmac, how the angle of descent matches the ideal glide path. It is practice, but the tension in the air feels real because the stakes in combat are always real. Takeoffs and landings repeat in cycles. The runway becomes a rehearsal stage where pilots push themselves, repeating maneuvers until precision becomes instinct. The spectacle may impress spectators, but for the aviators, this is not performance, it is preparation. When the Charles-de-Gaulle sails into contested waters, it is this repetition, drilled endlessly at Landivisiau, that ensures missions succeed and pilots return alive. The importance of this training lies not just in technical mastery, but in strategy. France's only aircraft carrier is nuclear-powered, a symbol of national sovereignty and global reach. In the Mediterranean, the Indian Ocean, or the Pacific, the Charles-de-Gaulle and her air wing can project power, deter adversaries, and reassure allies. The Rafale pilots who train here will be called upon to conduct missions ranging from airstrikes to surveillance patrols, humanitarian support to deterrence patrols. They are, in many respects, the tip of the spear of French foreign policy. History underscores this point. During operations in Libya in 2011, Rafales launched from the Charles-de-Gaulle carried out precision strikes that shaped the course of the conflict. In more recent years, they flew missions against ISIS in Iraq and Syria, demonstrating France's capacity to respond swiftly to global threats. None of these missions would have been possible without the foundational training that takes place here in Western France, under skies that often mirror the unpredictable conditions of the open sea. As the camera returns to close-ups of pilots, we see the human side of the story. Beneath the visor is not just a professional aviator, but a person who has chosen to embrace one of the most dangerous callings in military life. Carrier pilots endure long deployments months away from home and the constant strain of missions where a single mistake can prove fatal. Yet they embody resilience and professionalism, carrying the weight of national defence on their shoulders. Equally vital are the officers on the ground, the mentors, evaluators and guardians of safety. Their task is to transform individual skill into collective excellence. They represent continuity, passing down knowledge from one generation of aviators to the next. In their notebooks and radios, in their precise commands and sharp eyes, lies the quiet assurance that France's naval air arm remains battle-ready. The images of Rafales soaring through the Breton skies, cutting through clouds and sunlight, are not just dramatic, they are symbolic. They remind us of France's enduring maritime identity, a nation whose history, from Napoleon's fleets to the present, has always been tied to the sea. The Charles-de-Gaulle is not merely a ship, but a statement that France intends to remain a global player, with the ability to act decisively wherever its interests are challenged. As the training session draws to a close, silence gradually returns to the airfield. The engines quiet, the officers gather their notes, and the pilots climb out of their cockpits. Sweat, focus, and determination mark their faces. For them, it is one more day of practice. For the French Navy, it is one more assurance that when the time comes, the carrier air wing will be ready. And for those who watch, it is a reminder of the unseen discipline that underpins every moment of dramatic action on the world stage. This is the essence of naval aviation, a constant pursuit of precision in the face of peril, a fusion of human skill and technological power, and a ritual of training that prepares France's Rafale pilots for the most demanding task in all of aviation. In these fields of Finistère, far from the crashing waves of the open sea, the sound of jet engines echoes not just as noise, but as the living heartbeat of a nation's readiness.